Hello everyone, coming back at y'all with another Commander deck tech video. This time we're going to be doing Arcades the Strategist. This was, as always, voted on by my patrons. Kind of messed it up the last time I did it. I do it at a certain time and I probably did it a little bit later than usual, so I apologize for that. We're going to be on schedule from now on. Decided to go with Arcades because we have just a very unique strategy to go with that is very similar to Doran the Siege Tower, but a lot better. Yes, you are going to be using blue instead of black for this deck, so there are some differences. There are certain creatures in that deck that you can't play in this one that you probably would like to play, but with blue, it kind of makes up for it because we have some decent win cons that are now achievable with blue. But overall, Arcades is very good. 4 mana, Bant colors for a 3/5 legendary Elder Dragon with flying and vigilance. Whenever a creature with Defender enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card, and each creature you control with Defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. This is so important because it's basically Doran's, but with the added benefit of allowing your defenders to attack, because all that Doran did was basically make your defenders deal damage equal to their toughness, making it to where you don't really want to put defenders in that deck specifically because you want to be able to attack with high toughness creatures. This deck actually wants you to play defenders, which is so important. Now, one of the cool things that you can do with this deck right off the bat, we have some walls that are going to be drawing you a card on their own when they enter the battlefield. Wall of Blossoms, Wall of Omens, these are pretty basic 2 mana walls, so they're going to enter the battlefield. You're going to draw 2 cards off of them if you have Arcades out there already. And we have other walls that are going to do that, but getting more card advantage is so important because we do have win cons late game that we need to rely on. As far as must-haves, auto includes for this type of deck, there are some ones that you may not have heard of. Sunscape Familiar, green spells and blue spells you play are going to cost you 1 less, which is pretty much going to be every single spell that's in this deck for the most part. This is going to make Arcades cost less. This is just perfect. We also have a really funny card called Wall of Kelp. This is from Homelands, which is not a very popular set, didn't really have a lot of value in it, but this card did spike up since Arcades spoiled. An activated ability that allows you to put a 0/1 blue plant wall creature token with Defender into play is pretty good because you get to draw yet another card with Arcades. Not the best stats, a 0/3 for 2 mana isn't really anything special, but the fact that it does make tokens that draws us cards, I can definitely see why it did spike up. Now, another really awesome auto include that you're gonna need for this deck, especially if you want to go for combos, Axebane Guardian. You add X mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool, where X is the number of creatures with Defender you control. This is going to combo out pretty well with 2 cards, probably best with Intruder Alarm, but also with Paradox Engine. With Intruder Alarm specifically, all you really need is a Wall of Kelp, because that can put a token into play. Creature enters the battlefield, you untap all of your creatures, and you do have the mana likely to pay for Wall of Kelp's ability, so you can just make infinite walls, maybe deck yourself out with Arcades. So that's a fun little combo there. But there are other things, other synergies in the deck that work out pretty well. We have a Doorkeeper in here, gonna work in a similar way to Axebane Guardian, where it's an activated ability that works with however many defenders you have, which at first glance isn't going to be that big of a deal. 3 mana to mill an opponent X cards, where X is the number of defenders you control, doesn't seem that bad until you involve any sort of combo with Paradox Engine or Intruder Alarm, untapping it over and over again. If you have Axebane out, it just means that you have more mana to work with. And we're also playing things like Cryptolith Rites, so those untap cards are going to be even more powerful with our defenders that also have these activated abilities. Our team's going to be tapping for mana to pay for this ability, and then they're going to be untapping themselves over and over again. We can mill them out with this card, which is yet another win con. But if we want to go with the most obvious way of winning, when you involve card draw, it's going to be Laboratory Maniac. But that could be pretty slow if you have to depend on card draw off of your ETBs. But yet another win con that you should consider is Alurin and Cloudstone Curio. Any player may play a creature with total casting cost 3 or less whenever they could play an instant and without paying its casting cost, which is a good majority of our walls. A lot of them are just CMC 2, and Cloudstone Curio is whenever a non-artifact permanent comes into play under your control, you may return another permanent you control that shares a permanent type with it to your hand. So if we have something like a Wall of Blossoms or just any 2 mana wall, we have another one out there. Hopefully it's 3 or less because that's how Alurin works. We can just keep playing them, bounce the other one to our hand, and then hopefully we deck ourselves out with and Arcades, and then we eventually Laboratory Maniac. But that's about it. That's really what we're working towards when you want to play this deck. As always, the entire deck list will be in the description below, the link to it to my Tapped Out. If you're looking for some really fun cards to put in here, don't forget about Colossus of Akros. It is a 10/10 defender for 8 mana, which is a lot of mana, but it's also indestructible. With Arcades, he can attack without having to do anything else, so that's really sweet. But if you were one of the unfortunate people to get a Tree of Redemption in Masters 25, fear not, because that card is actually really good in this deck. It wasn't really a big deal in Doran the Siege Tower because, again, defenders in that deck didn't really work out too well. In this deck, that's the entire strategy. Really sweet inclusion. But as always, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about Arcades the Strategist. Very unique deck. If I had to build it in paper, this would be one of the decks that I would build. It's not like a lot of other commander decks, and it's been a long time since we had a very good Bant colored commander. As always, you guys have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video.